Yes, hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Cluiche with me, Séamus Brady, joined once again by Aaron Prendergast, the man behind Gaelic Fan TV. It was a big weekend in the Gaelic Games world, obviously not in terms of quantity of games, but in terms of significance of games. We had silverware galore in the hurling, the Joe McDonagh final, and the Leinster and Munster provincial hurling finals as well. Aaron, not a successful week for the Dubs on the hurling front. Very successful week on the Camogie front and the ladies Gaelic football front. We'll come to that later on in the episode. We are going to dive into the provincial hurling finals first. But definitely not in terms of quantity of games, but in terms of the importance of games. This weekend was a big one.
Absolutely, yeah. I think any provincial final weekend is a big one. And from a Dublin fan, being there and Croke Park yesterday, I know you were there as well. It's probably rare you get days like that in Croke Park as a Dublin fan, in all honesty. But I suppose that's the kind of new thing maybe with the hurlers getting to Leinster finals and everything else. But it was a cracking weekend. The Munster final today maybe wasn't as good as previous Munster finals. I don't think it was the same as like last year, the year before. But even at that, it was still a gripping contest, and the build up and the lads not paying the ESB bill and all that crack, it was kind of a bit mental to see. But even the Joe McDonagh, I was watching the Joe McDonagh in the pub before going into Croke Park, and I thought that arguably that was game of the weekend. That was a cracking game of hurling. Really went down to the wire. You didn't know which way it was going to go. And even some of the football, I watched the Laois New York game earlier today, just kind of had it on in the background, didn't really think much of it. And then all of a sudden, the more the game went on, the more I was properly getting invested in it, because it was I think New York actually have a chance here. But in the end, Laois pulled through, in fairness. And yeah, as you said, with the Dublin Camogie team, the ladies football, two brilliant weekends there, or two brilliant results. And then across the board, some big results. Armagh beating Meath and the ladies football as well. So looking forward to diving into it.
Yeah, certainly. Well, we are going to start with that Limerick Clare game, because that was the one that everybody was paying attention to. That was the big one on the billing today. It threw in at 4:30, and we'll come to the reasons for that later. But talking about the game itself, Limerick make history. First ever team to win 6 Munster Hurling Championships in a row. And I think everybody would agree that the last 6-7 years of the Munster Hurling Championship, the quality has just gone to a new level. But the fact that Limerick have set this history in that period shows just how remarkable Limerick actually are. I think they're the greatest hurling team of all time. I've thought that before this season, just the challenges that they have to come through in order to do their 4 in a row. They look like they're on the march to the 5 in a row. In this game, I never really thought Clare were going to win. If I'm being honest, I have this unwavering sense that Limerick will find a way, and they found a way again.
Yeah, I think this was arguably one of the easiest Munster finals Limerick have had. When you look back at recent years, last year, obviously had to Clare were on it that day. Maybe not as good as the year previous, but last 2 seasons, Limerick have had to be on it. You think back to Tipperary in 21, they had to battle back when they were 15 points down at half time, or 12, 13 points down at half time. Came back obviously to win that, so that was a big challenge. You think back to 20, obviously Waterford, 19, Tipperary as well. Same year they went on to win the All-Ireland. So yeah, I think I'd have to agree. I think this is the greatest hurling team of all time now. There's no debate in it. I think I was along the same opinion as you. I would have said Limerick were the best even before this game, but I think now it cements it. It can't be disputed now. And the thing is as well in this game, I don't even think Limerick still have another gear to go up on, to be honest with you. It felt like they always just had Clare at arm's length, and it felt like when they needed to up it after Clare would come back into it, they would. But you felt like they were always just managing the game. Clare would get a point, and Limerick would go down the other end and get another point. Clare would get that goal before half time for Peter Duggan, and you're thinking, okay, Clare haven't been great here. They haven't played particularly well, but they're level at half time. And then you're thinking, right, start the second half, maybe Clare might adjust a few things tactically. They'll probably stop going route one on top of Shane O'Donnell consistently over and over, because Limerick's half-back line just kept gobbling up the ball. But no, Limerick just took it up another level. They took it up another notch completely. Hit, I think, 3-4 points on the bounce at the start of the second half, and just never looked back from there. It was very straightforward win, really, from a Limerick perspective. And I do think now this is probably the first time, really, where there's massive question marks now over Clare. It's where actually are they? This is 3 Munster final defeats in a row. back-to-back All-Ireland semi-final defeats last year. Like, it's getting to the stage now where it's like I don't think I think you could argue they were number 2 for the last couple of seasons. I don't even think they're number 2 or 3. Like, I think Kilkenny and Cork are ahead of them now. So
yeah, were they number 2 though? Because they constantly fail to get past Kilkenny. Like, I do think that there's this. I do think that there's the styles make fights aspect with Clare and Limerick. That if you look at Clare maybe 2 years ago, they were perfectly lined up to go toe to toe with Limerick, and they have been like that. But I'd just be interested to ask you this. Like, Clare and Limerick have gone toe to toe now 3 years in a row. This probably was the easiest Limerick win out of the 3. But I'd just be interested to know, like, of the 3 Munster finals now that Limerick and Clare have faced, Limerick have always found a way to come out on top ultimately. And the question is, how? What do you think are the differences? What are those kind of little inches that Limerick seem to have over Clare that constantly means they get over the line?
I think I think this final was a little bit different, but I think in previous finals it was just that, and it's what separates Limerick majority of the time against all the top teams, which is as you said, like for me it's the mentality, it's the mental. Like, we look at the skill levels, we look at the technical brilliance of Aaron Gillane, Hegarty, all them lads. Like, I don't even think Gillane had a great game today, but like they still went and won the game. Like, other players will step up, like Shane O'Brien will step up, Hegarty, who was relatively quiet enough in the first half, then he just steps up and delivers. And how many times has Hegarty stepped up and delivered in big games? Like, he scored a brilliant goal in the Munster final, I think, last year. Scores a brilliant goal, obviously, in this final as well. Always delivering in All-Ireland finals. So, like, they just have those players that are just able to turn up in the big moments. And I think it's the mentality monsters, like, sort of type term, if you want to apply that to this Limerick team, because when the going gets tough, they always find a way, and they never like lose belief, no matter how tough the game is going. And even John Coyley, Paul Kinnerk, like, they'll be able to spot probably things that we can't see. They can make little subtle changes. I think their substitutions are always spot on. They always seem to introduce players at the exact right time, like Adam English coming on against Tipperary or against Waterford, scoring 4 points, coming on against Clare the last day, scoring 4 points. So like they always just seem to make the right decisions. But I think in this final, I wouldn't even say it was necessarily that. I think it was more Clare were just really poor, like tactically, just consistently hitting long to Shane O'Donnell, Cathal Malone, Aidan McCarthy. Limerick's halfback line just had the absolute game of their lives. Like Dermot Burns, Paul Hayes, Declan Hannon, like they were all absolutely outstanding. And Limerick just managed the game and just cruised to the victory. But I think in previous years, like, there hasn't been, I think they've been very equal in terms of skill level. There's only been 1 or 2 points here or there. But I think this year, I think Clare just haven't been as good. And I think Limerick have obviously stayed where they're at, you know?
Yeah, no, I do think, like, if you look at it this way, one of the biggest things that I noticed when I was watching the first half, there was quite a big wind in Clare's favour in the first half. And I noticed very early on in the second half, when I think it was Burns fired in a shot over the bar, I was like, that's going to be a huge problem, because Limerick have 3 dead-eye shooters from the half-back line in Hayes, Burns and Declan Hannon, and they can do that all day. And we saw it how many times in the second half, those lads firing the ball over from the half-back line, which is one of the weapons that Limerick have, because teams can't sit off that half-back line because they'll absolutely crucify you if you do. But I think that was one of the main things in the second half that Limerick had in their advantage. I also think as well, like, when you're talking the millimetres that separate the two sides, I think Limerick get far more return on their frees. Every time I've seen Clare play Limerick, they've missed stupid frees that I'm like, Gillane sticks that over and Dermot Burns sticks that over. Maybe not so much this year, but in previous years, when Burns and Gillane have been maybe in better form, they usually stick them all. Whereas Clare constantly chop and change. Tony Kelly's on them, then Peter Duggan's on them, then Mark Rogers is on them, then Aidan McCarthy's on them. And it's like, they usually miss a couple every time they play. And then I also feel like Nicky Quaid is just a better goalkeeper than Quilligan. And like, when you look at the saves that Nicky Quaid made in that game today, and you look at how, I don't mean to be too harsh, but Hegarty's goal was easy. Yeah. Like Quilligan ran out and kind of got stuck in 2 minds. He came out but didn't come out full sprint. And then if you watch the angle at which he came out, I'm like, you're not even in the middle of the goal. Like, you're literally standing over to the left. And Hegarty put it past him, and I genuinely watched it, and my split reaction was Nicky Quaid saves that. I don't know. Do you think I'm being too harsh?
No, I'd agree as well. Like I think what Quilligan should have done, because obviously like the ball is there. If Quilligan doesn't come out, Hegarty has to scoop the ball up and then probably hit it first time. But I think like for Quilligan, it would have been more take a few steps out so that you're narrowing the angle. But then as soon as he obviously goes to puck the ball up, then you charge at him. I think just running out blindly like that, it was just so easy for Hegarty, and a player of his skill, his ability, been there, done it. I knew, like, as soon as I seen it, I was like, in my head, I was nearly like, I think this is going to be a goal, and then it was, that way. And that's the thing, like, probably is small margins, really. But I think Quaid probably is shoulders and above Quilligan, unfortunately. You saw that with puck outs, like a few Quilligans went out over the sideline. Quaid's were spot on the money. Like the amount of times he picked out Hayes, picked out Burns, like peeling off the edges. And Clare really struggled with that. And Quilligan wasn't really at it today. And again, it's fine margins, but it's it's something.
I think those margins definitely they've always been in Limerick's favour. Like in these matchups, I think they always have. And I think when you look at it this way as well, for the future of this rivalry, Limerick, as you said, Shane O'Brien steps in, Adam English steps in. These are relatively new names. Donegal Dálig, Cathal O'Neill has now stapled himself in. But my point is that Limerick give off the air to me like this team is going to be around for longer. When you look at Clare and you look at John Conlon, you look at Tony Kelly, you look at Shane O'Donnell, you are thinking to yourself, how much longer can they keep going? And like Tony Kelly was in today, but he wasn't magical Tony Kelly. He was very solid and he was very good, but he missed a lot. And he wasn't at the same level that we've seen him at before. And I know he's been injured, but he wasn't the same. And my point is that he's picked up a couple of injuries now, and we've seen geniuses like that get injuries, and they just can never quite get back to the level that they were at before. My point is that this was the first Munster final out of the three where it didn't go down to the wire. Limerick won, and we're the better side. The 2 years previous, it went. So for the future of this rivalry, is it a potential that Limerick actually go further ahead over the next couple of years, or do you think that Clare could close the gap again?
No, I think this could be a big turning point, really, and I think you could be now looking at Limerick Cork as the two big front runners really in Munster over the next couple of years. I'd be surprised if Clare get back to a Munster final anytime soon, to be honest with you, because like Shane O'Donnell's already hinted that he's going. Tony Kelly probably realistically. It'd be hard for Tony Kelly after this, like, to give it another go. Do you know what I mean? Considering what's happened. Yes, you do have young lads like Mark Rogers. I thought was very good today. Hit 2 points, but like he caused a huge amount of damage towards the end of the game. Was probably unlucky not to get a goal. Like they do have a few young lads in there. Like McCarthy's probably still going to be around for another while. You obviously have Conor Lean who's come in there. Adam Hogan's probably still going to be there for a while. But again, it's like losing O'Donnell, Kelly, maybe John Conlon over the next couple of years, David McInerney as well. Like these are key core lads that were obviously been there and done it in 2013, and not having them around could be huge because look, Clare, like I suppose they are introducing a few young players here and there, but they're not having the same level of underage success even that Limerick have had in recent seasons. Do you know what I mean? So it's hard to really know where the players are going to come from. So and like even with that, Limerick's core players like Galan, Hegarty, Cole Hayes, like they're still in their mid-20s, like so they're not going anywhere. You have the younger lads still coming in as well. Like maybe Quaid might retire in a few years, but other than that, I don't think Limerick.
What if Limerick do 5 though?
5, yeah, but like you're looking at the age.
You look at Dublin, man. You look at Dublin, and once Dublin did 5, McCaffrey was off, Mannion was off. And Dublin lost, and hence they came back. But I
don't know if I'd see that. I think a lot will depend on Kiley. I think if Jim Gavin would have stuck around, I think a few of them players would have stuck around. But I think because it was a change in regime and everything else, I think a few of them probably saw, maybe it's time to call it a day. I don't know. Like maybe it could happen. Maybe a few of them could go, but I don't know, like they all just look like they're having their time of their lives out there as well, like celebrating towards the end. Like, why would you like want to give that up? Like I suppose Jack McCaffrey was very spoken about, obviously his job and everything else, the demands of that and everything that went into that. Maybe some Limerick players might be similar. But like with the Dublin team, there were a few lads that were coming to the end of their time. McManaman, obviously Bernard Brogan, Michael Darragh Macaulay. These lads are probably slowly coming to the end of their time. But like you look at Limerick, like a lot of them are still like maybe Tom Morrissey, Dan Morrissey, Nicky Quaid, Shamey Flanagan. But apart from that, they're all going to be around. They're all going to be around for years and years to come. And then you've got Shane O'Brien, Donegal O'Dowlig, Adam English all coming in. So yeah, like it's worrying really, because I like Limerick could possibly beat Dublin's record for 6 in a row. Like, they could possibly do 7. Like
I think Cork are the most likely. Cork are the most likely to have something to say about that.
Yeah.
But in recapping this game, Limerick won 26, Clare won 20. This, out of the 3 Munster finals that they've contested, I think was the only one where it didn't go down to the wire. Limerick were the better side. And in the second half, particularly, they really punished Clare with shots from the half-back line. Diarmaid Burns, Declan Hannon, Kyle Hayes, all firing over huge scores. And you looked as well, Clare missing their goal chances. Nicky Quaid making an amazing save from Aidan McCarthy in the first half. And you look at Hegarty's goal, in my opinion, an easy one for Clare to concede. And you look at it this way, Clare are further away from Limerick than they were 2 years ago. And Clare's core group of players, Conlon, Kelly, I don't know if they can get back to the level that they were 2 years ago. So we could see a little separation between the two sides over the next 2 years if Clare don't, rapidly turn it around, because I think a lot of questions are going to be asked now. How do you recover from that? You're going to have Wexford waiting for them. It's going to be a difficult game because Wexford were finishing the Leinster Championship off in good form. That's going to be no easy task for them to recover and get back into an All-Ireland semi-final. They got a big couple of weeks ahead of them. They have the talent to do it. I've no doubt about that. But can they get their heads right? Lohan has a big task on his hands. And speaking of getting the heads right, Micheál Donoghue certainly shares that burden after this. I mean, 328 to 118 in Croke Park. The optimism that I had kind of before the game, I was looking around Croke Park as well, and I was saying more Dublin fans have turned out for a Leinster hurling final than have turned out for a Leinster football final. I didn't think I'd see that day. But unfortunately, all those Dublin fans turned out for an absolute turkey shoot. Kilkenny beat the brakes off Dublin in Croke Park, 328 to 118. The game looked pretty much wrapped up very early on. Owen Cody hit the back of the net after 3 minutes, and just get the exact minute here where I thought that the game was over. It was in the 23rd minute when Sean Brennan made an easy mistake. It ended up in the net from TJ Reid. That made it 2-10 to 5 points. Like, just the game was over before it even began here.
Yeah, it was really, really poor from Dublin. Like I think, to be honest, I think when the Owen Cody goal even went in, I didn't feel like it was over. I didn't sit there and then and think this is done. But I was like, oh, Kilkenny have got an early goal here. They're 3-4 points up. Could Dublin's heads go a little bit here? Because we've been here numerous times before with Kilkenny and with other big teams where we concede an early goal, the heads go, and then we just get absolutely hammered. Like, it has been a common occurrence really throughout really the last 10, 11 years, especially playing Kilkenny. So you were a little bit worried. I was always hopeful, obviously, with it being a Leinster final, huge amount of Dublin crowd there. Definitely majority of Dublin fans. Like, I don't know if we'll get into it, but like the Kilkenny support was embarrassing. Like, there's no other way of calling it any different. Like, there was barely any Kilkenny fans there. And even some of them that were close to me in the Cusack stand, like a lot of them actually left early as well. Which I found bizarre, like considering Dublin fans actually stayed. Like, looking at the hill, like a lot of Dublin fans actually stayed towards the end. But look, you can't take anything away from the Kilkenny team. Like, this was their best performance of the year. They stood up. All their big players stood up. Like, Adrian Mullen was outstanding. John Donnelly again, like I think 3 points from him. He was very, very good. TJ Reid with 2-6. Owen Cody was very good. And it was so easy though as well. And I don't know what Dublin's game plan was. Like, it looked like at times we'd won forward and it was Ronan Hayes and it was just hitting the ball long, nothing would come. But then we would try and run it through the middle, and time again, just getting dispossessed, running out of ideas, hitting hope. And it was just so easy for Kilkenny. It looked like I'd arguably say it was the easiest game they played all year. Maybe alongside Antrim in the opening day.
It was easy. That's the truth. And like the other thing is like maybe we had a little warning for it in some of our performances. I'm not trying to look back and discredit past performances, not at all.
Yeah.
But we had played a Kilkenny side that were fresh off drawing with Antrim. They weren't necessarily in great form. And like at the start, like I said to the people who were next to me, I was like, that's like Adrian Mullen's back. And Adrian Mullen hit 7 points in this game. And like anything he touched, he just put over the bar. And I was like, you cannot, like right from the start, I always look at this as a metric. I'm like, we are having to work so much harder than they are for our scores. Like literally, they are getting points, and it's so easy. Like Owen Murphy's poking it out, John Donnelly's catching it, and he's turning and he's putting it over the bar. It's as easy as that. Whereas we seemed like we were trying to absolutely burn through. The other thing as well is, which really boxed us in, Kilkenny absolutely just had our full forward line on a leash. Any ball that went into the full forward line, Hugh Lawler, Mikey Butler, they were just absolutely rebounding it back out. And then once it got to Mikey Carey, Paddy Deegan, they sprayed it out to the wings to where either Cian Kenny, Adrian Mullen, or Mossy Keown was. And they just swung it over the bar. And it just repeated over and over and over again. And it genuinely was like a situation where I was like, this is death by 1,000 cuts. Like, this is literally like, if this was a boxing match, it would be called in the first round. It would be like, this is a clear mismatch. We know how this is going to go. Because the thing that just struck me very quickly is Kilkenny just had us figured out. They knew what we were going to do, and they knew how to get at us. And once they did that, they had the blueprint. We didn't have an answer for that. And you could see very much in the first, as I said, when it made it 2-10 to 5 points, I was like, we're already 11 points behind. I was like, we're not going to win. And it just is. It's the hope that kills you, man. Because I watched that game in Parnell Park and was like, we should have beaten them. Like, we really should have beaten them in Parnell Park. But we definitely were nowhere closer than this time.
Yeah, like, and it's one of them things, like, I was thinking about it this morning, and I was kind of like, maybe we did overhype Dublin a little bit. And look, sometimes as fans, it's very easy to get caught in the emotion and big up your team and believe that you have a chance. But like first day out against Wexford, got a couple of late goals. Carlow, we weren't particularly great. Like, remember we had that fluky goal from Fergal Whiteley. I think our best performance was against Galway, but we were very good against Antrim, obviously. Very, very good against Kilkenny. Probably should have won that game. Galway obviously go down to 14 men. They were beating us, I think, by 4 points when that red card happened. And you kind of look back and you put all the things together and you're like, maybe we actually weren't that good. And maybe we just aren't that good. Like, in the league, we were very poor. Last year,
I'm going to be honest, man. I'm scared for the Cork game.
Yeah.
It's the way they're playing right now, man. I really don't fancy that.
I mean, there's no way we can play as poorly. That's the only thing. The only thing is Kilkenny probably did take their foot off the gas for the final, like 15 minutes. Like, it was a 16-point win. It probably should have been 20 plus. Like, let's be honest. It really should have been 20 plus. Like, and 2 of the goals that Kilkenny scored as well were just like Sean Brennan mistakes, like basic error. And like, these things can happen, but it just probably summed up the day for Dublin, where nothing was working. You know, mistakes were being punished, and obviously, look, you're at the highest level of the game, which is playing Kilkenny. You're going to get punished, but like, you would worry, like, like it could be 20 plus, it could be worse. Look, it'd be interesting to see what Cork do against Offaly. The only thing you're hoping is Cork maybe take their foot off the gas. They're thinking ahead to Limerick. Maybe they rest a few lads and everything else. But yeah, it's like,
they're hyped up on adrenaline, man. I don't know. I feel like I could see another packed Temple Stadium.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be looking forward to it.
No. Like, before, like, I would have been dying to go to it, but like, I'm going to be away on holidays, funnily enough. So whether I actually even want to watch it, I don't know. I might just check the score and I wake up. But then if we somehow won, I would feel guilty. I would be like, I completely missed it. So I probably will have to watch it somehow. But I'm not looking forward to it though.
We have a question in from Gavin O'Reilly. He says, do you think there's a need for the Joe McDonagh? Like, it was a great win for Offaly, but look at what happened to Carlow the previous year. I think Leinster could be 12 teams, 2 groups of 6. Yeah, like that's a very interesting proposal. And you look at like Neil McManus, for example, was speaking about that on the Sunday game, like talking about how for Carlow, like, and I do completely agree that you look at Carlow, you look at Westmeath, you look at Antrim, even when they went down a couple of times, you look at Laois, like sides that have come up that have had good performances and great wins against teams in the Leinster Championship, and maybe not even wins, but great draws, and they've shown clear signs of progression, but then they go straight back down to the Joe McDonagh, and it's hard to maintain that level of growth when it's so cutthroat. I think like maybe opening the door to like, I don't know, some sort of system where you get more game time against teams that maybe aren't like your Kilkennys and your Galways who are likely to beat you. And I'm saying Galway when Galway have their act together, but that you'd be playing against your Dublins and your Antrims and your Wexfords and teams that are a little bit more catchable for Carlow, for Offaly and everything like that. And maybe you can get more game time into it. So like almost like a second level between the top level. I think it would be interesting, something definitely to consider. But going back to the Kilkenny and Dublin game, for Dublin, like where does the mindset go from here? Because like if we're talking about the Cork game, as you said, they're riding high, and like we're coming off a really disastrous performance. And when you look at it, like we played Limerick in the league in Croke Park and we conceded 330. We played Kilkenny in the Leinster final, we've conceded 328. So we've come to Croke Park twice this year in hurling. We've got battered both times. So like, and it's against two teams that were in the All-Ireland final last year. So like, it's just this year, it's like we've been shown like just how far away we actually are. And it's like, when you want to ask the players, like that must be so disheartening, and to try and get it together to play a Cork side who look like they're on the crest of a wave. It's going to be extremely hard to get the heads right for that game, especially when you look at what happened against Clare at the same stop last year.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very hard to get the lads up for it. Like I think it's going to be a difficult couple of weeks probably for Micheál Donoghue, like to get the lads up for it and everything else. I don't know how you would approach that, to be honest. I really don't. Like I mean, I think no matter what you try against Cork, you won't win. Like it's pretty as simple as that. Like if you rip up the tactics and stop the running game and start hitting long and go a bit more direct and play a bit more old school, you could do that. But then if that goes wrong and we get hammered, then all of a sudden it looks even more silly. If you keep the running game, that probably won't. I don't think that will work either against this Cork team, because this Cork team physically, in my opinion, are actually stronger and quicker than that Kilkenny team. And I think if they turn us over, they'll burn us on the counter attack. And they'll be ruthless as well. Like there was a few times Kilkenny got into good positions and just put the ball over the bar. I don't think Cork do that. I think Cork work a goal and like they could end up scoring 6 or 7. Do you know what I mean? It could be very, very bleak. So it's, I don't really know. I think the hope is just that Cork maybe like, I don't know, like feel sorry for us or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like when you look at this though, and we will talk about the Kilkenny fans, I saw a lot of tweets from very prominent GAA figures as well, like a lot of people questioning it. Like Colin Parkinson's tweet was one that I saw. Dan Casey, our good mate, highlighted on his story as well, like that he put up Colin's tweet. And like that was the Leinster final that Kilkenny were favourites for, and they played some absolutely exhibition stuff. Like some of the scores that Adrian Mullen was scoring was beautiful to watch. They're dominating, and they're going to win a 5th Leinster title in a row, and they couldn't give a rat's. They're literally out of the place the minute that it's finished. There was a big Kilkenny group up on the hill that I could see, and the minute the game was over, they were out of there. And I was just like, you don't even watch the trophy lift. Like, I know that we can't really talk that much as Dubs when you look at, you know, the Leinster football final attendance going down when Dublin are pretty much a cert to win. But that's a different problem in itself. There's a lack of competition there. There's a lack of a contest, and nobody expected, you know, anybody that came up against Dublin in the last 2 years to give them a challenge, hence the drop off in attendance. But people expected Dublin to give Kilkenny a challenge. People definitely knew that Galway would give Kilkenny a challenge the years previous, and yet it was a similar issue. Like, what is that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Especially leaving the ground, man. I get it if you don't go, but like if you're physically in the stadium, like where have you got to be?
Yeah, it was a little bit unusual. I get maybe it was 6 o'clock throw in late or whatever. I don't really know, but yeah, it was very unusual. Like I know, look, Dublin fans in the football, like the attendances probably have dropped significantly in the Leinster football, and there obviously is a large portion of that who are Dublin fans. Like, don't get me wrong, but, and obviously Croke Park is in our city, blah blah blah. But even Dublin fans, look, if you're coming from the south side or whatever, you know, it's not like we live in Croke Park. Like, you still have to travel to go there. Like, you know that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was bizarre. Yeah, I think majority of the fans were Laois and Offaly fans. I don't blame them for leaving early because look, you know, that they were there to watch Laois Offaly. They realised it was a non-contest and they left it. A lot of them left at halftime. I wouldn't really blame them. Like I would probably do the same if I was in a similar scenario. You know, and you had to travel back to wherever. But yeah, it was like, because it's not far really from Kilkenny to Dublin. You know, like I've done that trip a few times. Like Kilkenny's a nice old city to visit. Like it's about what, an hour and a half max, give or take. So like it's very unusual, yeah. Like, and considering like they don't really have to come to Croke Park too often, really. Like it's only what 2-3 times a year. You know, the Leinster final,
don't you worry.
Semi-final.
They'll be here for the final,
they'll,
don't you worry.
they'll probably all turn up for the final. But even at that, like even for finals, like they're just not really a really well supported county. And whether it's because they've been starved of, or whether it's because they've been spoiled of success and they're so used to it, and you know, a bit like the Kerry lads, they'll save their tickets. But even at that, like Kerry have a huge distance to travel to Dublin.
But at the same time, I'm not even trying to trigger them. They haven't won the All-Ireland in 9 years.
Yeah.
Like I'm not trying to trigger you, but like you haven't been spoiled with All-Irelands in the last decade.
Yeah, like, I'd nearly have a theory and just say there actually aren't that many Kilkenny fans out there, because like on Twitter, and look, even from your YouTube videos, my YouTube videos, like I very rarely actually ever have comments from Kilkenny fans. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just wonder, like, maybe like a lot of Kilkenny just aren't that bothered about hurling anymore. Maybe because Limerick have taken over and they were spoiled of success for so long. They're just like, I couldn't really be arsed with this anymore. I don't know. Like,
we're commenting here from Gavin. He says, poor Leinster fans, Dublin in the football, now Kilkenny in the hurling, possibly dominating. That's it. Well, I mean, the provincial champions haven't changed for football or for hurling. We haven't had a new one since 2019 when Wexford won it. Oh, well, 2020, obviously, when Kilkenny got their hands on it again. But since then, it's been unchanged. So we have to go back pre-pandemic for a new provincial champion. So that kind of sums it up. But yeah, hopefully next year, and I mean this for football and for hurling, for the betterment of the provincial championships, there will be different champions. Moving on then to the Joe McDonagh Cup final. As you said, Aaron, I agree with you. I think this probably was the game of the weekend. An absolute thriller in Croke Park, and the positivity and the wave of optimism around Offaly hurling just rolls on again. Joe McDonagh champions for 2024. The sides were level in the dying minutes, and then Offaly hit the last 3 points of the match from Killian Sampson, Charlie Mitchell, and Jack Clancy. And that ultimately proved the difference. Offaly Joe McDonagh champions for 2024.
Yeah, absolutely huge. Obviously, from an Offaly perspective, in fairness, was a cracking game, as you said. Like, it was one of the games of the weekend, if not the game of the weekend. Like, Offaly obviously started fast, like getting an early goal, like scoring 1-1 early on. Laois sort of came back into it. Adam Screeney obviously scored an absolute wonder point at one stage. It was not his only point of the game, but like, it was interesting. Like, I was watching the game in a pub, like not far from Croke Park, and I think everyone in the pub was supporting Offaly, even though we were all Dubs. You know what I mean? Like, a few Kilkenny fans in there as well. I think even they were supporting Dublin or supporting Offaly. So yeah, like, there just seems to be a real craze around this Offaly team right now. Dan Burke, again, very, very good player. Like, Adam Screeney's obviously getting all the plaudits and everything else because he's skillfully brilliant and the way he moves with the ball and everything else. But Dan Burke was very, very good. And like, some of the turns and movements and everything else. And Oisin Kelly, who came off the bench, I thought was outstanding as well. He had a very, very good game. Look, Laois didn't bow down though. Like, they made a game out of it, and like, going down the home stretch, at times it looked like Offaly were going to pull away, and then Laois would obviously come back into it. Paddy Purcell was outstanding midfield, like 5 points from him. Laois had a couple of big goal chances to get back into it. But yeah, fair play to Offaly. Like, what a week for some of them lads. Winning under 20 All-Ireland, doing your juniors or your leaving cert, and then you win a Joe McDonagh. Do you know what I mean? Like that would have been the week for Dan Burke. Like, so yeah, extraordinary stuff really from him. And yeah, fair play to Offaly. And look, I know obviously, I would agree with Gavin's comment earlier. I think they should definitely expand Leinster up a bit more, just so we're not having the same teams coming up and down every year. But look, I'd give Offaly a fair chance of staying up next year. I think when you look at the trajectory of Offaly, Antrim maybe going to lose some more players next year. Will Darren Gleeson go at it another year? We don't know. So look, I think Offaly could stay up.
I think right now Offaly would fancy a crack at Antrim, to be honest. I think they fancy a crack at Dublin after seeing the Leinster final. Like, I think it's shaping up to be a very interesting year in the Leinster Championship. The goals as well, they came at critical times. So Brian Duignan got an early goal that put them in a great position. They led at half time. Then Oisin Kelly hit the second goal immediately on the restart. So in both halves, Offaly made perfect starts.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, like whether it was something that was worked or part of the game plan pre-game, I'm not entirely sure. But they just and that's the thing. Like, fair enough, a lot's been made of this. Some of them lads, and physically in size, they're maybe not that big yet. Obviously, a lot of them are younger, so I'm sure they'll fill out as they get older. But what they do have is a real raw speed and quickness about them, and very unpredictable nature. Like, especially when you're not packing that much weight, because like the way they turn and swift and move in now, it's very old school kind of watching them at times. And I think that's maybe why so many people really enjoy watching them. But like two massive goals at the start of either half. And look, the young lads were there, but look, the older lads stood up as well. Owen Cahill, very good. Killian Sampson, very good. So yeah, look, massive credit. Charlie Mitchell, a very good game as well. So yeah, big up to Offaly. And look, I don't think it'd be out of realms of possibility that Offaly come closer to Cork than Dublin do. And when I say closer, I mean like, Offaly maybe will come within 15 or whatever. But look, I think if Offaly can somehow if they can come within 10 points of Cork, that would be some achievement, I think.
John, I think it would be a game for the neutral. Like, when you're talking about, when you're talking about how, entertaining it is to watch Offaly play. Like, they really, really play front foot attacking hurling. They have such skillful, exciting hurlers to watch. Like, I can see the Offaly Cork game just being a real showcasing of hurling skill. I think Offaly kind of deep down know that they're not really going to beat Cork. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. Like, I don't think Dublin are going to beat Cork either. But I mean, you look at it this way, is that Offaly can go into that game knowing that nobody expects them to win, go and give it a lash. And just you've won the under-20 All-Ireland, you've won the Joe McDonagh, you've already had an amazing year. Like, if they put it up to Cork, that's just a bonus prize. But they've been absolutely outstanding so far this year. Before we move on, Aaron Dunphy with 11 points, Paddy Purcell with 5 points, Aidan Corby with 4 points. They all deserve massive, massive shouts for Laois. Charlie Mitchell and Brian Duignan on the Offaly side, they combined for 1-8. So they were absolutely outstanding for Offaly in that regard. And Offaly are the Joe McDonagh Cup champions for 2024. I'm delighted to see them back in the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship, because they are hurling royalty, and it's good to have them back at the top table where they belong. We're going to stick with the small ball. We're going to move over to the Camogie Championship Group 1 Round 3. And we actually had some competitive games this week. You remember last week we had 6 absolute beatdowns across all of the groups. This one was a cracker in Nolan Park, 113 each. A late equaliser by Mairead O'Brien ensured that the spoils would be shared in Nolan Park. Aoife Doyle with 1-2 for Kilkenny. Beth Carton with 9 points for Waterford on the other hand, and Mairead O'Brien with 1-1, of course, with the goal, and then the critical equaliser right at the death. I think more so the main thing that sticks out of this game when you look at it is it's another showcasing of how Waterford have closed the gap on sides like Kilkenny.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, you would have, a couple of years ago, you would have backed Kilkenny to win this comfortably. You would have said it would have been a fairly straightforward win for Kilkenny. But again, huge for Waterford, because, look, they obviously took a fair beating in that All-Ireland final last year, and you were thinking, is it a one-hit wonder type scenario? Are they going to be able to come back and give it again this year? And for large parts this year, they've had a few moments here and there, but they haven't really had any big results as of yet. But this was huge, and they'll probably be kicking themselves if they haven't won it. Like, obviously, haven't seen any highlights of the game just yet, but considering the game finished level, you know, I'd imagine they're probably thinking, geez, that was a huge opportunity to win it. And again, it's massive. And I think it's great for Camogie as well, because look, it's been well documented that it's been Kilkenny, Galway, Cork for the last, 7-8 years. So the fact you're having more teams now coming into the fray, whether it be Waterford, maybe Dublin might be, you know, closing the gap a little bit, you know, like, and Tipperary are there as well. So yeah, look, it's great to see, and yeah, very entertaining game.
Yeah, no, it certainly was, and definitely a showcasing, as we said, that the gap is certainly closing between both of the sides. We have a comment in here from Raymond Gilmore. He was talking about Clare versus Wexford. He said Clare will struggle versus Wexford. Winning the league has taken too much out of their legs. Clare needed to win today to get the 4-week break provincial champions enjoy. I think that's a very, very interesting point, that like Limerick now can kick their feet up, do training camps and get themselves ready to go. Cork, you could say, maybe have a nicer run through that. Like, I don't think Offaly and Dublin are going to come close to them. But so that might be a way that they can kind of get their feet up. Jack here says maybe hedging their bets, thought they would win. Kilkenny, not big county. Dublin hardly support either in football until big games. No excuse either. Yeah, that's about the lack of the attendance. Yeah, no, that's what I was saying about the provincial finals as well. Like, you looked at it, there was a bad attendance for the Leinster football final this year. I just feel like when counties know they're going to win, I don't think the jeopardy element is there, and fans don't turn out in the same droves, unfortunately. I think you can see that even with Manchester City. How many times is Manchester City Stadium empty, especially coming into potential title clinching games? Now, one county that certainly is on the rise in Camogie as well is Derry, beating Limerick 19 points to 13 in Owen Beg. That's a big result for Derry. You know, All-Ireland Intermediate Camogie champions last year, getting promoted up to senior level. You know, they definitely have showcased their ability, and to beat Limerick and Owen Beg is a big achievement. Anya Barton and Aoife Shaw both hit 5 points each, and Breege Rogers also hit 3 points. It's a big win for Derry.
Yeah, absolutely, a massive win. Like, I remember speaking with Matthew, like in the build up to the game, we were kind of thinking, you know what, like Derry have a massive opportunity here. Like, they could potentially go and cause the shock and get the big win. And to be fair, they've done it. As you said, like intermediate champions last year, and they've come up and caused like you'd call it a surprise. Is it that big of a surprise? I'm not entirely sure when you look at where Limerick Camogie's been in the last couple of seasons. But yeah, fair play to Derry, like a massive win. And again, like I think it would be, you know, it's always better looking in any code when you have more teams competing. You have more top teams. I think what made the ladies football so good a few years ago when Meath came up was that you had a new team now competing at the top table. You had Armagh obviously there as well. And I think in Camogie, you have Waterford who are there, Dublin are bridging the gap maybe, and look, maybe Derry are as well. So I think it makes the competition even better.
Certainly does. We have a couple of comments in here. Jack says, not a Kilkenny man, but they're not their fault that the supporters don't come out. Raymond Gilmore and says, if Wexford beat Clare, it will be Kilkenny versus Cork and Limerick versus Wexford, All-Ireland semi-final pairings. I think Limerick and Wexford haven't actually faced each other really, have they, in the All-Ireland Hurling Championship since Limerick have been good. Wexford might be one of the only teams that Limerick have yet to beat in terms of a big game and championship, as well as Dublin. And thank the Lord that we have been kept away from them. Could you imagine how much they would beat us by? What?
Unless we get to an All-Ireland final.
Unless we get to an All-Ireland final, we'd have to go through a lot of teams to get there.
Yeah.
Then moving into the final game in Group 1's round 3, Tipperary 117, Antrim 6 points at the rag. This was a straightforward victory for Tipperary. Jean Kelly with 1-1, Grace O'Brien with 4 points, but the big news, Caught Devan returning 9 points from her. She's back.
Yeah, absolutely huge. Like, that was definitely the story of the day. And yeah, like it was expected really that Tipperary would win this game. Like, I think everybody's been beating Antrim, unfortunately. Like, they probably have had a few fair hammerings so far this year, so probably no surprise. And as I said, yeah, like Cat Devan back in the side, 9 points, and yeah, puts Tipperary very much in the equation now for the rest of the season.
Certainly does. And like, she was the type of player that, like, I was interviewing Karen Kennedy and the Tipperary manager after the game, after the league final back in April when they beat Galway in Croke Park. That was, of course, before the Dublin and Meath game. And was asking them about Caught Devan, and like they were very clear, like they weren't sure if Caught was coming back, but if she was, she would be a massive shot in the arm. She's back. She's hitting 9 points. She's a massive shot in the arm. Tipperary are contenders. Make no mistake about it. Moving into Group 2's round 3, we had three very one-sided contests in this. And this one actually surprised me. Dublin 4-13, Wexford 1-10 in Parnell Park. When you looked at the league, Wexford had shown serious firepower. They drew with Galway, and they've shown how tricky they can be. But in this game, Dublin just had them figured out. Grace O'Shea with 1-1, EJ Murphy with 1-1, Emma Flanagan and Aisling Gannon with a goal each, Aisling Maher with 5 points from centre back. Dublin looking very good in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think like you weren't really too sure how this game was going to be coming into it. You know, like as we were saying before, like I think both of these obviously drew a couple of weeks ago. You weren't really sure. Like I think Dublin may be slight favourites being in Parnell Park, but you didn't expect it to be a hammering in the way that it was. Like to beat Wexford that comfortably. What was it? 15 points in the end. Like an absolute hammering, really. Like huge for Dublin. And I think like Dublin Camogie's in a fairly good position right now. Like we're getting a couple of good results, couple of good wins. Definitely closing the gap on some of the bigger teams, and absolutely huge win. And I haven't seen any of it yet, but hopefully, you know, be able to catch the highlights a little bit later on. But huge win from a Dublin perspective. And as I said before, like it'd be great. You know, we've obviously won a ladies football All-Ireland recently and men's football. It'd be great if we could compete in Camogie as well. You know, maybe we can go for the quadruple.
You heard it here first. We'll move on then. Galway absolutely put a beat down on Down in Pearse Stadium, 6-27 to 4 points in this game. I had to do a double take when I saw the scoreline. Sabina Rabbit with 2-4, Ailish O'Reilly with 2-2, Orla McGrath with 1-2, Niamh Nyland with 1-3, Carrie Dolan with 7 points. I haven't seen this highlights of this game yet, but I mean the scoreline tells its own story. An absolute execution in Pearse Stadium.
Yeah, I mean that's quite the hammering, really. Like I mean, in fairness, like we are one of the best teams in Camogie right now. They've obviously been competing at a very high level over the last couple of years. You know, a massive reality check really for Down. Like you kind of, anytime you do see these results, you kind of do wonder like what on earth is going on there? Like how are we allowing these games to happen? But to be fair, look, Camogie and ladies football usually is very competitive. They usually are getting it more right than the GAA themselves, in fairness. But yeah, that's some hammering, in fairness. Like,
yeah, every once in a while there's a scoreline like that, and this one isn't too much more pretty, especially considering that Clare had home advantage in this one. But the All-Ireland champions were always going to take some stopping. Cork 2-19, Clare 1-4 at Cusack Park in Ennis. That's 3 from 3 now. The champions looking good.
Yeah, absolutely. Like huge win, like 2-19, 1-4. Very comfortable result from a Cork perspective. As you said before,
do you still think they're favourites to win the All-Ireland?
I would say so. I would probably put them as number one. Like I certainly think Waterford are in the conversation. I think Cork are definitively the best side. But look, Galway, Kilkenny, like those three have all kind of shared the All-Ireland really over the last couple of seasons. So you certainly wouldn't back away from them. But from what I've seen, obviously so far, I think Cork are motoring along very, very nicely. I probably would have them as favourites right now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I probably would. I'd probably say Cork number one. I'd say Galway number two, maybe just about. Even though Tipperary beat them, I was just kind of looking, saying it went down to the wire there. I'd probably put Tip number three, Kilkenny number four, Waterford number five. I think all five of those teams, I think, are capable of winning the All-Ireland. Then Zul from Mexico says, great GA day. Greetings from Mexico, the best GA channel. Thank you, Zul. Love seeing your comments coming in. Hope you're having a great day over in Mexico. Big love to Mexico from Ireland. And we'll move on to the next game now. So we're moving from the small ball to the big ball. So the All-Ireland Senior LGFA Championships kicked off this weekend as well. All eyes were on this game. Armagh 3-9, Meath 1-14 at the Athletic Grounds. All eyes were on Armagh to see how they would recover from obviously the news that Amy Mackin had done her ACL in. Her season is over, which is absolutely devastating for them. But they got a 1-point win in this game against Meath at the Athletic Grounds. The goals coming from Aoife McCoy twice and Niamh Coleman in a gripping opening encounter. Emma Duggan deserves a mention for Meath. She hit 8 points carrying the flag for the Royals. But Armagh get the win.
Yeah, absolutely. Like huge win from an Armagh perspective. Like seeing Aoife McCoy got both of the two of the goals there for Armagh. So Yeah, huge win. It was probably like, even with the injury to Amy Mackin, you were kind of thinking Armagh home, given Meads vulnerabilities, you were thinking Armagh probably still have a chance at winning the game, and obviously they capitalise on that. As you said, like Emma Duggan, 8 points. Like I suppose with all the change and turmoil and players leaving and everything else, like she's been the mainstay, and was obviously one of the most important players, obviously, when they won the All-Ireland, back-to-back All-Irelands a couple of years ago. Ciara Smith, 3 points as well. But look, overall, yeah, fair play to Armagh. I think as well, probably, it's that kind of thing as well. When your best player gets injured, everybody writes you off. But at the same time, it's extra fuel to the fore for the players, because they want to prove that they're Armagh. They're not Amy Mackin. Do you know what I mean? They want to go out there and prove that they can go out and do it. And to be fair, they did. It's a huge, huge win. And it puts them into a fantastic position now, getting out of the group, you'd imagine.
It certainly does. I thought that they would have won the game probably a little bit more comfortably. I think when I saw how bad Meath were in the Leinster final against Dublin, I thought they looked so off the pace that day. But I just think Amy Mackin's injury is going to take far too much out of Armagh. I don't think anybody can stop Dublin winning the All-Ireland this year. Like, I really, really do, especially when you consider that Sinead Goldrick is back, when you consider that Jennifer Dunn has stuck around for the championship. She's going to be here still. I don't see anybody stopping the Dubs. Like, that's the honest truth. Especially when you consider that Kerry's form isn't the greatest either. They drew to Donegal and Ballybuffet 1-6 to 9 points. Now, me and you both highlighted this game and said that we expected it could be a tricky one for Donegal. It could be a tricky one for Kerry. Away in Ballybuffet, and it proved to be Caoimhe Keown's goal, ultimately proved to be the score that took a point off Kerry in Ballybuffet, and off to a bit of a bumpy start.
Yeah, like, I was keeping an eye on this game, and it just felt like Kerry, or I felt like Kerry were just hanging on towards the end. Donegal got a couple of points, obviously, late on to obviously level the game. Look, Suzanne White with a late point, obviously in injury time. And as he said, from a Kerry perspective, they're massive not massive favourites. Obviously, Dublin are the favourites, but they do have that tag of, can they kick on now? Can they do it? But look, fair play to Donegal, big draw. And Donegal do have this habit of just producing every now and again. They beat Dublin a couple of years ago. No matter how much change there's been, Donegal, retirements of big players and everything else, they're still there, and they haven't gone away. So yeah, fair play to them.
Yeah, no, certainly. Then they've already produced a big result in Championship 2024. So too have Cork. Cork absolutely decimated Laois 6-13 to 1-5 in O'Moore Park in Group 3's round 1. Terrible start to the championship for Laois. Moan Ernie scored 1-4 of their 1-5, so they're very reliant on her up front. The absence of her own Fitzpatrick is very, very obvious in that Laois forward line, whereas Cork, on the other hand, I mean, how do you want to even analyse this? You can't really take much from this when they had no challenge in front of them. Ava McAuliffe hit 2 goals, Katie Quirk hit 1-3, Derek Kiley with 1-2, Rachel Lahey and Hannah Looney with a goal each. It's an important win for Cork, especially when you consider their relegation, that they're off to a winning start in the championship, but it definitely was not a test.
No, absolutely not. And funnily enough, like, I was on Matthew's podcast during the week, and I predicted Laois to win this game. Just thought I'd try out a mad prediction. And
Cue up the prediction at the end of the year. Worst prediction of the year.
Yeah, I think this might be one of them. And to be fair, like, it wasn't like I've saw much of the Laois ladies footballers now or anything like that. It was just more of a, I'm just going to throw a mad prediction out there and see what happens. But yeah,
I predicted Sligo to beat Derry in the, I think it was Christy Ring or something, and Derry won by about 17 points. So I've had a stinker already this year too.
Yeah, it is. No, this was a bad prediction by me. But look, fair play to Cork. Katie Quirk 1-3. And as you said, really, like, it wasn't a contest. It was very, 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 very comfortable in the end from a Cork perspective. And like, I think from a Laois perspective, back to the drawing board. But as you said, like, Cork are streets ahead. So yeah, big win for Cork.
Certainly. And then Dublin also started off their campaign with a win in Group 4's round 1. Dublin 110, Mayo 5 points at Parnell Park. An easy win for Dublin in all seriousness. Hannah Tyrrell and Carla Rowe with 1 goal and 5 points between the two of them. Dublin's deadly duo at it again, but really Dublin just had Mayo's defence completely shut down. Mayo's attack, completely shut down. Like the defence that Dublin have there is just absolutely fantastic. The halfback line of Lauren McGee, Martha Byrne, and Sinead Goldrick is absolutely out of this world, and they completely dominated the game and pick up a comfortable win.
Absolutely, yeah. Like Mayo started the game well, like they hit a couple of early points, and took Dublin probably about 20 minutes or so really before they could actually kick into gear and obviously start dominating from there. But as you said, yeah, like very comfortable win. Parnell Park, like Carla Rowe 1-2, Hannah Tyrrell 3 points. Were two of the forwards who obviously scored. So Laura McGee 2 points as well. So yeah, fair play to the Dubs. Expected win in Parnell Park, like we are the favourites. So no surprise, and yeah, should be comfortable enough in getting out of this group, I would say.
Yeah, no, I would back us to get out of this group. I would back us to defend our All-Ireland title, to be honest, in this particular moment in time. Sticking with the football, then we're moving on to the Tailteann Cup preliminary quarter-finals. Starting off with the one that I thought would be the most evenly matched and the hardest one to call, which didn't turn out to be that way at all. Wicklow and Leitrim. Wicklow picking up what was a pretty easy win, 2-15 to 1-11 against Leitrim in Carrick-on-Shannon. And 1-2 from JP Nolan, 3 points from Kevin Quinn, and 1-1 from Christopher O'Brien. That's the Wicklow full forward line, combining for 2 goals and 6 points of Wicklow's tally. It was a game where Leitrim never really looked like winning, and they're out of the Tailteann Cup.
Yeah, like I would have expected this to be a lot closer as well. Given Leitrim obviously promoted, like fair enough. I think we both backed Wicklow to win. And to be fair to Leitrim, like they weren't actually at home. Like obviously Park, Sean McDermott is under construction or renovations or whatever, so they played it in Glennon Brothers Park. But yeah, very, very comfortable for Wicklow. Massive win for them. And to be fair to Ushie McConville, he has got some big wins for Wicklow, like obviously beating Westmeath. And yeah, like going away to Leitrim, getting not away, but getting the win, it sets them up quite nicely. And I think out of the 4 teams going through, Wicklow, Antrim, you obviously have Laois who are there as well, Limerick who are there. I think Wicklow are the one you don't want because they're very unpredictable. Yeah, I think look, Limerick have done very well, don't get me wrong, getting to a quarter final, but I do think like they were playing a very poor Tipperary side. I've seen as well Paul Kelly step down like literally immediately. So like that probably shows really like in year one you're stepping away, like probably not a lot there to work with in all honesty. I think Limerick would be fairly beatable.
I wouldn't want Antrim if I had to pick. I wouldn't want Antrim.
Yeah, I think Antrim are probably one of them as well that are kind of going under the radar. They would be a difficult one. I thought Laois were very poor against New York, to be honest. I thought they were very lucky to win. We'll get onto that, but yeah, like I think Wicklow are going in quite strong, and look, they nearly beat Kildare a couple of weeks ago, and it would be very interesting if it would be Kildare and Wicklow in the next round.
Yeah, no, certainly would be. I mean, the battle between Glen Ryan and Ushie McConville will be really, really interesting as well, and especially when you consider that Kildare left it to the last second to get the winner against Wicklow back in the Leinster Championship, which feels like an eternity ago, but realistically it's probably only 2 weeks ago given how fast the championship is moving. But we're going to move on to the next game of the Tailteann Cup preliminary quarterfinals. Laois 1-13, New York 1-9, and you were keeping up with this game. You had it on GA Go. Laois were made to sweat for this one. In the 51st minute, Killian Butler's point had New York 8 to 10 points ahead with the 10th minute goal from Bobby O'Regan, and the difference between the two sides at that point. Paul Kingston levelled in the 52nd, and then in the 58th minute, Mark Timmins hit the back of the net for Laois, and that proved to be a crucial score. They kicked on to win it, but didn't look impressive doing so.
Yeah, definitely not. Like first half, I thought New York were very, very good. Like Shane Brosnan and Bobby O'Regan, both very good. Like Bobby O'Regan's goal, by the way, like, oh my goodness me, like probably one of the goals of the year. And it's kind of bizarre because they actually missed the like literal open goal like later in the game, which would have won the game. So they kind of had like the best goal of the year and the miss of the year probably in the one game. Like it was fierce conditions in fairness. Like it was crazy conditions. Like the wind looked about as strong as ever. Like there was sometimes players would play a pass and the ball would literally blow in a complete opposite direction. So it was a tough game for either side, and that probably made it better for New York so they could sit in and defend. But it was definitely there for New York. And like they were more than within it. And when Sean Fitzpatrick gets sent off with 20 minutes to go for Laois, the game was level at that point. Killian Butler hit a point a couple of minutes later to put New York in front, and you were thinking, right, I think New York can win this. I think they have it. Then obviously the goal from Mark Timmins, and I think New York will be very disappointed about that, because it wasn't really like, it was just Mark Timmins was running with the ball, and then one of the New York defenders like went in to challenge him, and he just skinned them and then put the ball in the back of the net. It was just such an easy goal to concede. It wasn't even like it was well worked or anything about that. But yeah, look, fair play to New York. Like Emmet O'Kenneala was very good. Bobby O'Regan, as we said, Shane Brosnan, and that's 2 years now in a row where they pushed Carlow very, very closely in the Tailteann Cup last season. So I do think, like, could we get New York more involved in this competition? Is there a way to do it? I know obviously there's the financial reasons and everything else, but I think like New York could really benefit from more games, because you can see, like, you know, like they played well in this game, and this was a Laois side that was promoted from Division 4. You know, so yeah, they'd be very disappointed.
Yeah, no, we have a couple of comments in here from Gavin, which definitely are very good insights. Gavin, he says about the Wicklow Leitrim game, he said, tight at times, but good win for Wicklow. I think Andy might get the boot now, and Mickey the promotion to Leitrim manager, obviously talking about Mickey Graham. I think that would actually be a good move. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I suppose, year 3 now for Andy Moran. Got them obviously promoted. Yeah, I think so, to be honest, because like Leitrim are probably going straight back down next year. Like, let's call a spade a spade. It's going to be very difficult for them to stay up next season. So it'd probably be a good time for Andy Moran as well to get out of Dodge, you know, and look at doing something different, or go back to off the ball or whatever. But
but when you look at like who came down, like Kildare will go back.
Yeah. It's going to be very, and it's no slight. Like, I think even with Mickey Graham in charge, they could probably still go down next season. But yeah, I think that probably would be
Mickey Graham went down with Cavan. Like, Mickey Graham got relegated from Division 3 with Cavan. He's not a miracle worker. Like, he did do a great job with Cavan, all in all, but he also did have some howlers. Like, let's call a spade a spade. Going from Division 2 down to Division 4 and back-to-back seasons was absolutely mental. And I know that was around the COVID time, but he won the Ulster Championship, so it was definitely a tenure of highs and lows for Mickey Graham, I would say, as Cavan boss. So Gavin says as well, we talked about this early in the year, but New York were so close. They need more experience playing Division 4 teams instead of Mayo, Galway and Roscommon and Sligo catching up. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, they need more game time. They need more fixtures. And like, when we were talking about, you know, should New York and London play against other teams from like Boston and, you know, Warwickshire and Lancashire and everything like that, and have competitions that are organised so they can win, you know, the UK's Gaelic Games competition and then be the rightful champions to go in and play against, rather than just sitting there twiddling thumbs waiting for the match to come up. I would say so. I would say that it is something that should be looked at in the future. Anyway, moving on then to the Limerick versus Tipperary game. You mentioned this. Paul Kelly stepped down immediately after this game. His last game as Tipperary boss finished in defeat. Limerick 118, Tipperary 110 at the Gaelic grounds. A relatively straightforward win for Limerick. Emmett Richter at 1-4, Danny Neville with 4 points. Goalkeeper Josh Ryan also hit 3 points. Sean O'Connor with 5 points and Paddy Feehan with 1-1. They carried the fight for Tip, but it was a game where they were underdogs and Limerick ultimately got the win.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think a lot of people would have expected Limerick to get the win, obviously being at home and everything else. And yeah, it was a fairly straightforward win, really. Like, Emmett Richter, very good. Josh Ryan, very good, as you said. Danny Neville back in the side, very impressive. And it probably shows where Tipperary football is at. In all honesty, I know they've got Sean O'Connor back. They did have Connor Sweeney back, but he doesn't seem to be in the team the last few games. So I'm not entirely sure what's happened there. But yeah, I think it just shows really where Tipperary football is at. Like, year 1 for Paul Kelly, obviously did a very good job with Thomas Davis here in Dublin, and it just hasn't really clicked, and it's very hard to know where they go from here.
Yeah, it certainly is. And like, I think it's honestly worth doing a video about it. Just clicked in my head, like, has this Tipperary golden generation been a flop, or was it a success? They got to 2 All-Ireland semi-finals. They won they won the Munster Championship. You know, they got a couple of All-Stars. Was it a success? Or
I would say,
is it a glaring example? because I think it's a glaring example of what's wrong with the current structure.
Yeah, I think it was a success just given where, when you look at Tipperary's history, like obviously winning a Munster title, and I know obviously they didn't have to be Kerry in that process of winning a Munster title, who are the best team in Munster, like, if we're being honest. But like, got to 2 All-Ireland semi-finals, like got as high as Division 2 at one stage. I think the problem really though is that they achieved it. They got it. I mean, like, they got a Munster title. They got to 2 All-Ireland semi-finals. Realistically, I think a bulk of those players knew we're never like we could work our absolute socks off and not get back to this game. Like, look at Clare, for example. Like, all them lads going at it, hammer and tongs year after year.
That's what I mean, is like, in terms of silverware, food on the table, legacy, in terms of like name being engraved on a trophy, Tipperary have won more than Clare.
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing to face.
And the funny thing is as well, like, I think if it had been roles reversed, probably see a similar scenario where a lot of them Tipperary lads are still going, and Tipperary are very competitive around Division 3 or 2 or whatever, and Clare, a lot of them lads probably would have stepped away, because you achieved it. You won a Munster title, you got to 2 All-Ireland semi-finals. I know there could be a case of, well, let's all stick around and, you know, maybe we can go one further, but I think realistically they probably knew. And look, I don't know, we don't know the whole ins and outs. Like, maybe there's other issues going on at Tipperary, like the fact so many of them are leaving. You know what I mean? Like, why do they not want to play football? They all want to play club football. So I don't know what it is, to be honest. And it seems to be under different managers as well. They all stepped away. So
I think it's the size of the commitment versus what they could potentially win.
Yeah.
I think that's it. They're not winning Munster because of Kerry. And not only will they not win Munster, they're going to get the living daylights bet out of them. And then on top of that, they won't win the Tailteann Cup either, because this, you know, there'll always be a Kildare, a Down, a Meath, you know, someone that is just that little bit ahead of them. And like, that's it, is that if they get up to the Sam Maguire Cup, you ain't doing nothing there. You're just waiting until you get sent back down. So I think a senior, intermediate and junior structure would have actually given Tipperary oxygen to actually build something. And like, I know we were talking earlier about the hurling, but like, the hurling structure actually keeps hurling alive in counties, because if you look at that, like, you look at Fermanagh winning the Laurie Mar, you look at, you know, Kildare winning the Christie Ring, you look at Donegal winning the Necky Rackard, and you're like, hurling isn't massive in those counties, but winning that bit of silverware does give it an injection of life, does give it some hope, does give, you know, managers an ability to go to players and go, look, we won something. We won a national trophy in Croke Park. If you commit to the team, this is what we can do. In Tipperary, you can't do that. You know, like, do you know what I mean? You can't. What is the leverage to get players involved? And that's the other thing as well, is you look at Waterford, for example, with Paul Shanky. Like, Waterford made big steps forward this season. Like, you know, getting them the win in the Munster Championship over Tipperary, ironically, beating Longford in the Tailteann Cup. You know, they've made big steps forward, but the reality is 5 years later, I think they're going to be in exactly the same place, because again, they're not winning Munster and they're not winning the Tailteann. So where are they going to go? Like, I think that's mainly it. Gavin comments here says, think both Tip and Limerick were having a bad year, but credit for Limerick turning the year around a bit with the championship, tough loss to Cork and decent Tailteann Cup so far. And that's it. If they win the Tailteann Cup quarter-final, they're into the semi-finals in Croke Park. That's not a bad year. And then the final preliminary quarter-final was Antrim 3-11, London 2-10 at Corrigan Park. Rory McCann twice and Dermot McAleese hit the back of the net as Antrim saw off a difficult London challenge at Corrigan Park. Stephen Dornan and Michael Carroll hit the goals for London in this one. They've made a brave run of it. The highlight, no doubt, being their victory over Offaly by 14 points in O'Connor Park. But their run in the Tailteann Cup is over. Antrim move on to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I think London can take a lot of positives from this performance, and if they can carry on like beating like this form going into next year, obviously, you know, very, very hard thing to do. There's always such a high turnover of players in London, and will Michael Maher stick around to give it another year? Like, he's been there obviously a good while now, so will he be able to actually go and give it another go? I don't know, but there is a lot of positives. Like, they started the game very, very strong. Like, I was keeping an eye on the on the game through score BO, and I remember checking the score and they were 1-1 to nothing up after about 10 minutes, and you were thinking, all right, maybe something could be on here. But as you said, Rory McCann gets a goal, settles them down, and then Antrim kicked on and won the game. But like, fair play to London, 4-point defeat. We would have probably went with a more comfortable Antrim win before the game, especially with it being in Corrigan Park. So yeah, you have to credit the Antrim lads for getting for London for really pushing Antrim. And yeah, like, I think if all these London lads can stick together, the manager, like, I don't think they're out of realms of possibility of pushing for promotion next year. I don't think they'll be necessarily a million miles off. I think they can definitely get closer than how they have been in the last 2 years. So yeah, I think huge respect to London. And as you said, Antrim are just going about their business quietly, and they'll certainly be one of the teams you would not want to play in the next round.
Completely agree. Yeah, so that is the weekend wrapped up. Massive congratulations to Limerick on making history. It's the first team to do 6 Munster Hurling titles in a row. Big congratulations to Kilkenny on winning the Leinster Championship again, Offaly on the Joe McDonagh Cup, and then to all the teams who are victorious in their respective clashes over the weekend. Sinead, Darren, Clore, Gurmila Mogwith, thank you so much, everybody who tuned in, left a comment, especially Zul tuning in all the way from Mexico. Appreciate having you on again, my man. Till the next episode, guys, here on Cluiche. Torah.